make this the short version. I mean, you guys will, I think, get the gist of this pretty quick and easily as well. That's actually one of my favorite things about Collect is easy. So EQuIS Collect is our newest product. It's going to come out with EQuIS 7.0, which is our next version of EQuIS that's due out. Good that we didn't do a Ontario user group last year, because you guys would have probably still heard me talking about 7.0 at that point. It's been a long time coming. We're getting close to the end. We're actually working on a beta test right now.
Does that work with Windows 7?
Which part? EQuIS? It should, I think. It should, Tammy. I think we should be good to go. So 7.0 in general is going to be out within the next couple of months. You ask our Chief Technical Officer, he'll say early summer of this year. So, but should be out pretty soon. We're just wrapping up a few things, beta test, QA testing, things like that. So it's pretty exciting. We're getting really close to the finish line. You know, and a lot of our applications, of course, have new features and things like that. There's plenty of other things to talk about with regards to 7.0. But one of the big things is that we're releasing this new product along with it, EQuIS Collect. So it's a field data collection tool. And so we'll now have two field data collection tools. We'll have Edge and then EQuIS Collect. So for those of you that are familiar with Edge, stands for EQuIS Data Gathering Engine. That's been our field data collection tool to date. And there's advantages and disadvantages to Edge. And I kind of think of these two tools as along sort of the same spectrum, if you will, of field data collection. Edge is great if you have these really complex, robust projects where you need all of this, lots of power and heavy lifting and lots of different forms going on all at the same time and all this sort of stuff. It's fantastic for that. I'm not trying to say that I don't love Edge. However, if it's something where, well, Dan, I wish Dan was here with us, because his example is Bubba is out in the field and he sees a moose while he's out in the field, and he simply needs to log that, yes, in fact, he's seen a moose. Do you really need this whole huge Edge application to be able to do something like that? And ultimately, the answer is no. So EQuIS Collect is designed for really to be able to collect ad hoc data easier, in particular to be able to collect both non-EQuIS data and EQuIS data in the same spot. And one of the cool things about it is that it's Edge is only Windows compatible, even Windows 7. It's only Windows compatible, whereas EQuIS Collect is now going to be device agnostic. So it's going to work with any Windows 10 operating system, but also with iOS and Android. So you can use it on phones and tablets. It's designed to be more responsive, so it's a lot easier to work with on small screens and small devices, whereas Edge, you really kind of need a lot of screen real estate to work with it. So just to give you guys a little bit of an introduction, I think I have slides that probably say most of what I just told you guys. Here, my batteries are failing me here. Okay. So the cool thing about EQuIS Collect, especially for the folks that are actually using it out in the field, so our actual Collect end users, is literally, it's this difficult to do it. And I'll show you guys this here in just a second. So you basically download it from one of the app stores, so the Apple Store or the Google Play Store or something like that. You log in. So everything kind of is done in the background in Enterprise in terms of setting up users, giving them credentials, all this sort of stuff. So then the end user, they basically log in using their credentials that they have to collect. They go through, they collect a bunch of data, and it's very intuitive, very easy. And then they can upload that data to Enterprise, assuming they have connectivity out, you know, when they're out in the field. If you don't have connectivity at that particular point, that's no worries. You can always save it and then upload it later as well. Okay, so you can work offline with it, but it's really quick and simple to do. Gosh, that text is just so small. So EQuIS Collect features and functions. I talked about the support with iOS and Android in particular. It's going to work with subscription licensing, meaning if you have, say, there's 20 of us in here, so if you have 20 different people that all are going to use Collect, but they're using it at different times, You don't necessarily, this is why it's good Dan's not here, you don't necessarily have to have 20 different licenses, okay? You'd kill me for saying that, right? No, that's fine. You can have, say, 5 licenses if you know there's only really 5 people that are going to be using it at any given time, and you can essentially check licenses in and out and things like that. Okay, so that gives you a lot of flexibility with it. It says collect dashboards. There's really one single dashboard that I'll show you guys here in a minute from the enterprise side, where essentially you do all of your management, where you can build forms, you can custom build forms to your heart's content. You can assign forms to different users. So, you know, if you have different field teams and you want field team A to have a certain set of forms and field team B to have a different set of forms, that's quick and easy to do. There is a form builder, so like I said, you can build your own forms, but then Collect's also going to come with a library of like 40 or 50 pre-built forms or something like that. So if you like those, you can just use those right away, or you could start with one of those, make a few customizations to your own version of it, and go from there. All pretty quick and easy. Scott?
Do you have anyone using this for like an operator logbook?
That's one of the potential, so it's brand new, so nobody's technically using it yet, but that, yeah, that's one of the potential thoughts behind it as well, is using it for something along those lines.
Industry's starting to move towards that.
Yeah, exactly.
Logbooks at every station.
Exactly, yeah, it really gives you a lot more freedom than, say, something like Edge, or, I'm not trying to downplay Edge, again, but this is pretty cool and exciting because, yeah, it can really be used for that sort of stuff if you want.
So if I had 20 operators out there all collecting data at the same time, and I only had 5 licenses, still operate within that, basically, like,
yeah,
they can, 15 of them can be collecting offline.
Yeah.
And then once that license becomes available again, essentially, like, they can upload all their data.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that.
Isn't the subscription licensing is per user?
I'll double check on that. My impression was the check-in and out. I'll double check.
Edge is definitely checking in.
Well, Edge is, yeah, for sure. Well, Edge is a device license, so it's tied to that device, whereas this, I think, is tied to active user, essentially. I'll double check.
So Ian was just telling me something about wanting to be out in the field with hotspot thing or something. When you say collects non-EQuIS data, does this sound like something you could use, or
we're going to push it?
Yeah. You can use, so everything in terms of like building forms and setting up, so you can build forms that collect like non-EQuIS data in step 2. Really all you would need to do to work offline is essentially download those forms, say, onto your phone or your device like ahead of time when you still have connectivity. And then once you're out in the field, you can fill in all of that information. You don't necessarily have to have a hotspot out there or something like that. You can do all that stuff offline. And then once you get connectivity, you know, upload it back to the database. So you don't technically have to have, yeah, if you're in a remote area or something like that, you don't have to have it.
When you say connectivity, like basically if I'm out with my BlackBerry and my BlackBerry is connected, then that's connectivity. Like you, just as long as your data is working?
Yeah, your data. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so if you're using a phone, you know, a tablet is something where not all tablets necessarily have like the data plan built into them and stuff, but yeah, especially with phones, if you can use data on your phone, that essentially means you're connected. Simplified data collection workflow, you guys already saw that. It really is just kind of 4 little steps. I'll show you guys the user interface here in just a moment. Works offline after initial login, so just like we were talking about, if you want to work offline, you certainly can. Forms can be built on top of any EDD format, so if you want to start with a specific EDD format and build a custom form based on that particular format, you can, whereas Edge is tied to the Edge format. So it gives you a lot more flexibility there. And the advantage of doing that, of choosing different formats, is you may want the data that you're collecting to wind up in specific places in the EQuIS database. The formats already have all the mapping and everything built into them, right? So you choose the one that maps your data to where you want it to go, and then you can basically build it and make it user-friendly and all that sort of stuff. The really cool thing, if you're like me and not at all developer or anything close to that, is that those of us that aren't developers can actually build the forms. It doesn't require knowing VB or anything like that anymore. Heather?
So like a form is kind of like almost like a paper form. It's not looking at it in a table or anything like that. It's
Correct.
just a drop-down stuff.
Yes. Yes, that's a good way to think about it. And that's exactly right. You know, like what Tammy was talking about. You know, there's still plenty of people that like their paper, their original documents or something. I mean, it really is meant to be hopefully a replacement for paper forms and stuff like that. Much easier. It's not in like a data table view or that grid or anything like that.
Can you pre-populate forms before you go out to field? Which wells you're going to, what you're sampling for, you can fill that all ahead of time so you don't have to do typing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you can basically set up the forms so that, yeah, they're essentially as smart as you want them to be, so that, and or pre-populated. You can limit, you know, if you say, well, I know it's going to be one of these three things, but I don't know what it's going to be, you can, you know, basically set up smart lists so you choose from one of those three things instead of having to like type in whatever it is and all that sort of stuff. Right?
Does it have the functionality like as you load the data or the last time you were there?
Absolutely.
So you kind of have the reference for evidence?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally. Collect non-EQuIS data. So again, if you're collecting other things that either don't really fit into EQuIS or you don't necessarily want to put into EQuIS, but instead of having to use, you know, EQuIS Collect and some other app or something, you can still collect non-EQuIS data, and then basically it'll put it in like, I think you can choose the format, but it'll put it in a spreadsheet or a CSV or something like that. So you could, once you have it all collected, you could, you know, take it and do something else with it.
What about the workflow? Because, you know, there's a gazillion of these applications that do the same thing, basically. Take care of all the dependencies, look up all that. It's the workflow where the money is. So, and to make sure those handshakes are solid, make sure it gets to the database in one piece. Yep. Without doing anything and nobody touching it.
Yep.
What is this?
So this sends it essentially and I'll show you, essentially when I hit the upload button, at that point, basically the data that I've collected with Collect, essentially it acts as an EDD. Goes straight into Enterprise and essentially is processed right there on the spot, errors, not errors, whatever. So, at that point it works just like Enterprise EDP does, where if there are errors, then it spits it back out and says, hey, no thanks, here are the errors, and it'll actually show us that in real time, both in Enterprise and on the device. And then, of course, if it's good, then it shows up as green with a cute little green check mark and all sort of stuff, and it's in there right away. So if they are actually pushing things from the field in real time, they'll know probably while they're at that location, hey, this is already done and in the database, which is pretty slick. So yeah, that's, like you said, that's kind of where the money is, I think, with this is, you know, not only can you collect the data and build your forms and all that sort of stuff, but it has essentially all of EQuIS behind it as well. So you're just uploading EDDs literally as you go if you want. Yeah. Okay. More words. Terrible. Let's see. What are the highlights? We can manage structured or unstructured data. You'll see we have like a sketch pad. We can take pictures. We can do custom signatures. We can pull data from web services. So if there's a nearby weather station, for example, and we want to download our weather information from that, we can do that. There's notifications right in the field. I'll show you all guys all this stuff. Sorry, this is so dark and weird. But so to compare these products a little bit, you know, beyond just kind of thinking about this spectrum of Edge versus Collect and, you know, which one you want to use for any given project, some things to be aware of for at least 7.0. Now, this may change in the future. I know that they're going to be adding, you know, more functionality to Collect as we go. Right now, Collect, there's only partial SPM support with Collect in 7.0. So Edge and SPM, we didn't talk about SPM, which is a shame. But Edge and SPM are really designed to work together and to help with track completeness and build all these complex sampling events and all this sort of stuff. Collect isn't really going to have much in the way of that SPM completeness and all that sort of thing yet. Okay, and that yet is key because they are going to add that in the future. Also, there's not going to be any support for data loggers, like we were talking about data loggers earlier. Not going to be any support for that in 7.0 collect. They are going to add it in the future. Okay, so just things to be aware of if you are using those things with Edge now, at least for those particular projects, you probably want to stick with Edge for a while. Okay, so they're going to add that stuff over time. I've been told that there's no plans for Edge to go away. I imagine maybe eventually, you know, things might move almost exclusively towards collect, or at least they're, you know, you'll have the option of using one or the other, which pretty much the functionality that you want. Okay? But there are a few differences right now. Okay, so what I wanted to show you guys then is essentially just kind of a little demo of how this works.
Your screen turned off, I guess.
Oh, it certainly did. Oh, yeah. Oh. Hang on. It also told me that I was being too loud. My go-to webinar did here. Yeah, let me try one more time here. Okay, well, let me fire this thing back up here so you guys can actually see what's going on my phone. Okay, while I do that, okay, so this gives you guys a little bit of a sneak preview here with what Enterprise 7.0 is going to look like in the first place. And this is Alex's super secret site that he gave me, so I'm not allowed to break anything in here. But so these, I should have made these a little bit lighter here, but so EQuiS Collect is actually, in terms of all the management, the form building, all that sort of stuff, is going to be essentially a dashboard within Enterprise, okay, in 7.0. It's a little bit different from the other dashboards that a lot of us are used to, simply because it's not a dashboard that we have to build and add our own widgets to and all this sort of stuff. Essentially, if you open a Collect dashboard, you're going to have all of the different options over here, and it's going to be more or less configured. You just point to, you know, the facility that you want to look at, you add users, and you're kind of off and running. So, you know, I have, right now I'm on the EQuiS Collect map, and this is for, I mentioned Alex because this is showing us where Alex lives in Leamington. And so we have, you know, a few locations that you can see here on the map. This is stuff that he's loaded data for ahead of time. One of the cool things that's going to be available with Collect is the ability to do, essentially fill in boring logs in Collect. There's going to be at least a couple of forms where you can essentially collect data that's relevant to boring logs. And then as soon as it gets uploaded, it'll be available. I'm probably just clicking too much. I think it's just being a little slow. Okay, it'll be available as a download, and it uses, you know, a template that you include in here and all this sort of stuff. But this is actually part of our EnviroInsight integration. So what it's doing in the background is, as we collect this data with Collect, it's sending it to EnviroInsight to actually develop these boring logs and then spit them back out for us. And the second we upload this stuff, it'll be available as a boring log. So that's one kind of cool option here. And so you can have all kinds of different information on the map. You can set these up as statuses, so it'll show you for any given, you know, site what's been collected, what's not been collected, and things like that. Okay. But let's take a look. So if I go to user groups, okay, this is where an admin would come in and they would add different users. So Alex made me a user, you guys, I'm so happy. Okay, and then you can have different users assigned to different teams, and based on the team that they're assigned to, that's going to dictate what forms they can actually download on their device and state. Okay, so you can have user groups. And then form designer, this is where the forms actually get built. And so you can see there's a ton of forms in here already. If I wanted to create my own form or start with one of these, I certainly could. And you see that a lot of these forms in this form designer have user groups assigned to them, so team A. So for example, when we get onto my device here in just a second, you guys will see I have the boring log form template. A form template is essentially just a collection of forms, so it might actually be several different forms that are sort of all collected together. Okay, but I have boring log, daily leachate, there's all kinds of different forms in here. We're going to take a look at some of them on my device here, groundwater, et cetera, These forms are the forms that actually come back. So essentially as people start, so in real life this list will be much longer, because as people start pushing results back to the database, this gets collected. So it's essentially EDP, like I was talking about before. The display is a little bit different than I think what we're used to with enterprise EDP, but it'll tell us the status of things. It'll let us know if we've uploaded 1 form or 2 forms or 8 forms for a particular project. It'll tell us not only how many we have, but if they were successful or not. And we can actually, it's not in here quite yet, but we'll be able to download, error logs and all that sort of stuff if there are problems with them. We can try and resubmit on all that sort of thing.
Emily, is it going to have the 2-tier checking system as well? Do you know, that kind of throws people off or they're not aware that it's 2 tiers?
Oh, versus the data versus like the create commit.
Well, yeah. So one is just to make sure that all the valid values are correct, dependencies.
Yeah,
that sort of thing, and then one's commit.
I believe so. I believe it's essentially going to have that same exact functionality that Enterprise EDP has. So still checking for all that stuff and then doing the create, and then I'm not sure what the default commit type would be. I imagine probably whatever's in Enterprise EDP as well. Okay, so that's the gist of it. And essentially what I would do here if I wanted to assign, a specific form to team A, my team, that's not already, assigned, I could come in here and choose a specific one. So field types is actually kind of a good one. It's already assigned to team A, so I should have it in there. Let's say, just for fun, that I wanted to assign this erosion control inspection log. I just select team A, and it'll be assigned. And the cool thing about that is, once I look on my phone, if I'm connected to collect it, essentially will download that form for me, assuming I have connectivity. Okay. So let's take a look at this. Let me see if I can get this thing to behave itself for me now. All right, let me enter in the ID. So this is my handy little trick here so you guys can actually see what's on my phone. It'd be just my luck if it doesn't work now, right? There it goes. Okay, there's my dog in the background there. Her name is Taz. She's crazy. Okay, so I have EQuiS Collect on here, as well as a very excellent Harry Potter app, by the way. Okay, so this, let me go back to the, to the home screen here.
It only works with BlackBerry phones, so you all have to know.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so if I go into Collect, sorry, I just want to log out and log. Yeah, no. These pesky betas. So when you log into Collect, okay, it essentially has you put in the server ID, so that's essentially the enterprise URL, the same one we were just looking at before, and then your username and password. So that's really the main information that the users would have to have. It'll remember the server ID, luckily, so you don't have to try and do that every time you come in, and your username. And then when I log into it, essentially it's going to give me a couple of different options. And you see it says it's downloading, so it's already grabbing, oops, sorry. It's already grabbing any new forms or anything like that. These are ones that I was playing with last night, so it's actually showing me ones that I've already used. But let's take a look at the templates. The templates are all of those same forms that I was just showing you guys in Enterprise. So anything that Team A has access to, I essentially get on here. Okay? And so if I wanted to do, let's say I'm going to do two cool ones here. I'm going to do, let's do the groundwater sampling. Oh, I think it's this one. We'll find out. Okay, it's having me choose a facility, and this is just a scroll list of the facilities that I have permission to, so it's not making me type it in or anything. It's just asking me to choose. And then I could give it a description, you know, more sampling, typing it on my full BlackBerry keyboard, I'm just saying. Okay. So then once I give it a description, so this particular form, this groundwater one, this actually has three different, you can think of them as sections or kind of three different individual forms all here together. So when I said a template was like a collection of forms, that's kind of what I mean. It might have multiple sections essentially. So if I wanted to do some more groundwater sampling, I just hit new. My project number is already in there. That's because it actually remembers that. When I was playing with this same form last night, it remembers that project number for me. So it'll remember it from the last time I put it in there. So if they're going to like several locations throughout the course of a day or something, it'll remember a lot of this stuff so they don't have to populate it over and over and over again for the same project. Sample date time, it'll automatically do today's date and time if I wanted to, but I could always adjust that if needed. I just hit save. This one is set up, they set up a weather option to pull weather data from basically the closest weather station that's to wherever I am based on the GPS on my phone. So I can say pull from server. Depends, of course, that's probably internet connectivity dependent. Try one more time. Don't want to overwhelm it. All right, I'll show you that one later. Yeah. Okay, there's location ID. And so this kind of goes back to what Emily was saying. So look, I have a choice of 3 locations. So it's not necessarily every location under the sun or anything like that. It might just be those relevant for my particular project. Okay, so I can say this is for MW03. Sampler. Okay, I'll pretend that I'm Alec because he didn't add me as a sampler. How rude. Okay, so I can choose a sampler. He just did initials, but of course you could do full names or something like that. The other cool thing about these forms is you can have them be conditional, you can have them do formulas, you can do all kinds of stuff like that. So this field here that says duplicate, for example, if it's a no, this is the original sample, okay, then it has a bunch of fields down here that it wants me to populate. But if instead I change duplicate to yes, okay, then it actually collapses a bunch of those extra fields. But then it does give me, in addition, a parent sample field, and it says, okay, you have to enter in the parent sample. But then all that extra stuff that if it was a duplicate I wouldn't need to populate goes away. So it's pretty cool because it'll do both of those things. I'm going to change this back to a no. Okay, so field, essentially all this field result stuff, when I change that to a yes, this stuff went away. Okay, and of course you can pick and choose whatever you want to be there or go away or anything. So time, you know, my measurement time, right, 2:59 already. Holy smokes, you guys. Okay, water level. I mean, I'm not going to do every single one of these because you guys, I think, get the idea. Literally, I'm just pointing at stuff and filling it in on my phone. It's way, way simple. Okay, sample ID. You can have these fields that are essentially like informational or reminders too. So like for this particular one, it says the analysis that's required. Okay, this is where we say what analyses were actually collected. Okay, so at least metals is required. So I could say, yeah, I did metals, and then we're also going to do VOCs for whatever reason. Okay, so maybe we want the lab to do additional things. We can select that. Okay, you can choose things like number of containers, all that sort of stuff. Okay, but pretty easy. I can add comments. When I'm done with this form, you can always save as you go, of course. But when I'm done with this form, I just hit save. And then I can go in and I can create an actual COC. There's another form for QA/QC summary. When I'm ready to send this off to when I'm ready to send this off, why is it not giving me, this offline? Oh. It should give me the option here to send it off basically right down from the bottom next to my home screen there. But let's go back to the home screen. Oh, because I'm offline it says, well, that's cool. Magical. Okay, so this one here, because it thinks I'm offline at the very least, it basically wasn't giving me that option to submit it. But these ones here, so geophotos, water levels, all this sort of stuff, you guys can see here these the green versus the red. So these are ones that I submitted last night in my hotel room. I was having a marvelous time, by the way. And so you can see the ones that went in versus ones that didn't go in. I'm guessing for the water levels one, I probably left out a required field or something like that because I was just kind of pointing and clicking on stuff. Okay, but let me show you, see if we can get our connection back, but let me show you a different form here. This one.
You could turn on Wi-Fi and just go on the region public.
That's what I'm on, and it isn't unhappy with me for some reason. So this one is called field types. This isn't necessarily configured at all. I'm pulling this one up just to give you guys an idea of some of the different field types you can set up in your custom forms. So you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second. Okay, so here's different options. So you could do something like a string or barcode where essentially you can set up a field where if you wanted to add a value or scan a barcode, okay, you could do that.
So if your monitoring wall has a barcode on it, you could just scan it and it would know where you were.
Yeah, so I just took this QR code that's from the back of my business card here. I actually didn't even press anything. I just held it over the thing, and it immediately popped up with what was on the QR code. So it doesn't have to be a barcode that it's configured for or anything like that. It'll basically read a barcode or a scan code. Yeah, so if your locations have a tag that has that on it, no problem. Okay, you can do strings with masks. So what that means is you can basically force collect to enter things in a specific format. So this is going to be 2 numbers followed by 3 letters with a hyphen in between. So it won't let me actually type anything besides that. So I could do, 1, 2, it automatically adds the hyphen. And if I try to type other things besides this format, it doesn't let me. Like I was actually trying to type letters when I first typed that 1, 2, and didn't do anything. Okay, because that mask basically forces it to be a specific thing. Yeah. Okay. You can do long strings. You can do dates, times, date times. Okay, you could set a timer if you want to. Lots of different options for these. Decimals, counters, ranges. You could do a photo or an image. So if, for example, I wanted to, take a picture of everybody. This is at my site. Okay, then I can put that in there, and if I set it up so I even want to draw on it or something like that, draw an arrow to a specific feature or something, I can certainly do that. Okay, so then like the drawing sketch, you can do one where it's multiple photos or images if you want to, so if you need to take multiple pictures. Signature, I'll come back to. GPS coordinates. So what this will do is this pulls up a map. And so I can essentially say where I am. And so I can, and the GPS on your phone is perhaps not always accurate. So if you needed to adjust it a little bit, you looked at it, you're like, I know I'm not right there. I'm actually a few yards that way. You could do that. And then you just hit set and save. And then it pulls in all that information for me. It's based on, in this case, the GPS on my phone. But if I had another GPS device plugged into it or something, yeah, I could pull from that as well. Okay, there's selectors, there's multi-selectors, so this one is like multiple people. We'll choose Graham and Mary or something. Okay, so lots of different options in here. The weather service, let me see if it'll do it now. No, it still thinks I'm offline for some wacky reason. Okay. Okay, but lots and lots of different field type options in here, just depending on what I want to do. And so it's a matter of essentially just building that form. Yeah, still giving me grief about that. So apparently we won't do any uploading right at the moment. But one of the cool things in here is reports. I just selected reports that are in the top left corner there. Oh, and it's not pulling those either. I wonder why my... No, never. Okay, but in here, maybe I just got to do it this way, huh? Refresh it again.
Emily, would it be the public Wi-Fi blocking thing?
Oh, there it goes. So I just was able to refresh it. So you see that field types and then groundwater 1, those are those two forms I was just playing in. You see how they have the little arrow now? So if I wanted to upload one of those to Alex's super secret site and see if he gets mad at me later, I could. I just hit that little arrow, and it double checks just to make sure that the facility you selected is the right one. And so I say, yeah, we're good. And then it'll go to Enterprise. And you see that immediately, as soon as it's done uploading, I get the little orange check mark. And that essentially means it's processing. So we've sent it to the server. We don't know if it's going to be green or red yet, but it's processing. And then as soon as turning my phone, sorry. As soon as it gets uploaded to the server, on here it'll automatically give me the feedback that it's been, rejected or accepted or something like that, which is pretty cool. So let me go back to one last thing here. Okay, so if I click, I'm still giving me that. Let me go to a different one. Okay, I've been using Collect now for the grand total of maybe about 45 minutes in my entire life. And it really is, I mean, aside from my little bit of bumbling and stuff in here, it really is that easy to use. I did go up to, or come up, I should say, to Windsor to do some training with our Collect builders. But it was, most of the training was all about the form building and stuff like that. Once we got Collect on our phones, we're like, oh yeah, this is pretty straightforward. And we were just clicking around on stuff and could figure it out no problem, which was pretty cool. I think that was one of my favorite things about it was just how intuitive it was.
So your builders are in Windsor?
Yeah, we have a big team there or in the Windsor area. So like Alec, who's our VP of these products in particular, VP of EarthSoft Canada, actually, he's in Leamington. But then, yeah, a bunch of our edge guys are there.
You can pay Canadian dollars?
Okay. Okay, so this, say hi to my dog again. Okay, but this here, so I uploaded that groundwater sampling form. And I promise I'm almost done. Come on, keep going. Must just know that I'm supposed to be done by now, so it's like, whew. Gotta be patient. Okay, when I go to forms, it's only been a couple of minutes that I've been talking and stuff like that. As soon as this thing stops thinking, my forms actually come up. You guys should see that we'll have that groundwater 1 that I just uploaded. And it'll probably be in some stage of processing. It might even be done by now with a fairly small amount of data. And I want it to give me something here.
Emily, do you know the cost on this?
I don't off the top of my head. Do you know what it is?
It's not expensive, that's what I'm...
Yeah, it's, whatever that means, right? I do know it's significantly, I'll double check because I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. I don't want to tell you guys the wrong thing. A device license of Edge is $1,000, and it is significantly cheaper than that. I don't know off the top of my head what it is.
Well, you can bill your clients for it anyway, so you know, if it's enough.
Is that annually?
I think, well, so the initial license is our perpetual license, so you buy it once, and then essentially for however many licenses you have, the rest of it gets, you still have to pay software maintenance on it to get the support and all that, and whatever your total license portfolio is of all your EQuiS stuff, essentially 20% of that a year for your SMA, your software maintenance agreement. So there would be, for the Collect, that would add to that total essentially, but you wouldn't have to like keep buying the full license every year or anything like that. All right, well that totally sucks. While we're talking about feedback, I'll see if I can get this to come up a little bit, but I'll send you guys a full video that actually has some of these things that weren't behaving today. I think it's just slowing down. Probably more people are getting on it, I bet, and so it's maybe slowing down a little. So I've already kept you guys after 3, even though I promised we'd be done by 3. I apologize for that. Before you guys go, really quick, any thoughts about this? You can tell me it sucks if you want to, but you know, one of the things that I think we'll try to do going forward is probably have something in this area, probably on an annual basis. Like I said, this is the first one, so you know we haven't ever had one before, but
we're very happy. The region's very happy to host it, or you know, if that's convenient for people. But we didn't know what to expect, and I'm assuming like we had very introductory stuff because a lot of the people here are introductory people. I was kind of assuming in the future a user group would be less introductory, but what are they like in other places?
Well, it depends, because I think it is really a mixed group of folks. You know, even I would say the one exception to that is we do one in sort of the mid-Atlantic area, usually like Philadelphia or somewhere in New Jersey or something. And there's a ton of longtime users down there, and so that one in particular, there tends to be a lot more, you know, in-depth things, I guess. But one of the points of a user group in my mind is not necessarily, it shouldn't be training. I don't want it to be, you know, training necessarily, because you're not going to get, like we were talking about earlier, you're not going to get everything you need to know about EQuIS in the span of 5 or 6 hours anyway. And so, you know, I think one of the things that makes user groups really great is not only when you hear from us about stuff, you know, I like showing you stuff or that sort of thing, but when you guys can actually share, you know, like Mike did, or like Tammy and Emily and Heather did, and Jen, you know, when you guys actually share different things that you've ultimately done, or, you know, tips and tricks or case studies, or even what didn't work well or anything like that, I think that that is really what has the most value with these sorts of things. So as other people do start using EQuIS more and more, as you guys, you know, get kind of further past your implementation, all that sort of stuff, you know, my vision for this would be that we have, you know, as many kind of different client presentations as possible, different user presentations, which is pretty cool, whether it's showing something in EQuIS or showing some slides or case study or whatever the case may be. So we also do other kinds of events, user group events, like instead of a full day thing, we've started doing what we call tasters, where, first of all, there's cocktails, so that's always a good thing. We usually do them at night from like, yeah, we usually do them at night from like 6 to 8 or something like that, and we'll do them at like a restaurant or a brewery or, you know, something along those lines, where we'll do like a little presentation. Like lately my shtick has been preview of EQuIS 7 stuff. But instead of a whole bunch of presentations, it's usually more about, you know, the networking and talking to people and drinking a little potentially and things like that. So, you know, so it depends. We don't necessarily have to. We could do something, say, next year, but we don't have to do something in this exact format either. We've done lots of things in between. So, anyway. Anybody regret coming? Come on, raise your hand. Nah. Okay.
Do people like it running over lunch, or would both of you prefer to have it entirely before in the morning or entirely in the afternoon?
Really, kind of a full half day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a bad idea.
So that it's not, so that our inboxes aren't so filled.
Yeah, yeah. That's generally my issue most of the time. Yeah, that's a good idea. Well, and that's one of the reasons, like, we started doing these tasters I was talking about is, you know, a full day can be a lot to ask of people to, yeah, be away from your inboxes and be away, you know, get out of, I mean, it's kind of like, for you guys, it's probably like taking a day off, except probably less fun than an actual day off. So, you know, so, I mean, we could certainly do something like that, a shorter format of some kind, but maybe have like a little breakfast or brunch or something, and, you know, just a couple of presentations or something instead of an all-day thing. think
Content is
about that.
fantastic.
Cool.
Content, because there's a client of ours here, obviously.
Yeah.
And seeing how they're implementing it, versus
Yeah.
how we're using it.
Yeah.
And seeing some of the new things. I think content will be segmented. It's terrific.
Cool.
It gives us great education.
Okay.
I
Good.
believe.
Good.
So however we need to do that, I think we're all prepared to do whatever's required.
Cool.
If we had a
Okay.
choice. But
Well,
if I
and
find a choice, I would do either a morning or an afternoon.
yeah.
But the only thing is, if you want to encourage people to come from a little farther away, does that work for them?
Right. That's true. That's true.
You saying no, it doesn't work.
Well, and that's, so one of the things about this is, I've talked with Mitch, for those of you guys that have ever talked to Mitch Beard, he's our CEO, and we talk about user groups far more than we should probably, and he came to one that we had, and it was a little bit smaller than this one, I think, and he was like, it's not quite enough. We were doing fewer, but we wanted them to sort of be bigger and have more people for a while, and he was like, it's not quite enough if this is kind of our only one we're doing here to make this, what do you call it, an EQuiS party or something like that. And I said, well, no, but I think, the idea is that it's people that can get there easily and all that sort of stuff. That's why we started having more of these in Canada, where we used to only have essentially one in Calgary every year. And in the U.S., it wasn't much different. We had maybe 2 or 3 or something kind of total. So we've started doing a lot more of these. I feel like I'm doing a user group, I don't know, every couple of weeks, which is awesome, of one format or another. So, we want it to be focused around you guys, and if for a different region that means doing it a little bit differently, there's no problem with that. So, think about it more. I'll follow up. And then, the other point of like doing the sign-in sheet and giving you guys a contact list is we don't have to be here to necessarily for you guys to get together, in all of you or in smaller groups or whatever to, share, do something even more than once a year. That's, I think, what we hear a lot of other people say is they're like, why does it only have to be once a year? Well, it's because I'm just one single person, really. So, it's hard for me to be everywhere at once. But that, that certainly doesn't mean that you guys can't do something, or have a forum or whatever you guys want to do.
Or you can join us virtually.
And absolutely, and that's totally true too. We could always do something like that. So,
Guys, I know I've been to the PhD office, and it's pretty slick now. We have a thing we could bring in. Probably wouldn't have worked, but it has like a 360 camera that sees everywhere at once, and so it's a lot easier to do a remote hook into someone. But
yep.
if anybody has that kind of built into their office, that could be another.
And we've also started trying to make, like, we've had Matthew on the phone all day, poor guy, listening to us and, at least being able to see the screen and stuff. We've been trying to do the online thing a lot more as well, which pretty much for any given user group or taster or whatever, we try to have an online option also. So if you hear about one, maybe you can't make this one for whatever reason. You were like, well, I still want to get the information, but I can't travel or whatever the case may be. I mean, we do different things at each one. But, you could certainly sign up for online ones and stuff too and attend remotely to any that you want. So, I don't know why my voice is going out all of a sudden, but oh well. Other cocktail. That kind of drink? Okay. I have a one-track mind. Any other questions, comments, anything? You guys are just like 20 minutes over, Emily. We're ready to go. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys very much for coming. Thanks, Tammy and all the region guys. You guys did a great job. And thanks to
everybody for coming.
Putting it together, really. Yeah, it was you guys. So, really appreciate it. All right, I'm done talking now for real. We'll hang out for a bit. So if you guys want to chat at all, we'll be here.
If you're still hungry,
my EDD did, in fact, upload. You guys see this groundwater 1 and it's green. I'm just saying.
Today's date on it. Good.
Today's date. Perfect. Thanks, Matthew. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and end the GoToWebinar, but thanks for sitting in here with us. We appreciate it.